Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. My name is Ellie and this is going to be the Love in Books tag. So I actually created this tag video myself because I wanted to form a tag that celebrated different kinds of love. So I have been filming this tag video every February since I started this channel, and the inspiration was because of course in February we have Valentine's Day, and I feel like there is a lot of talk about romance in February, and while I do enjoy a little bit of romance here and there, sometimes it's nice to shine a light on other forms of love too, because I feel like Valentine's Day should be about celebrating all of those people that you love in your life, not just necessarily someone you are in a romantic relationship with. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy this tag video. I don't feel like it needs much kind of introduction, so I'm just gonna jump straight in with the first prompt. If you want to play along with me, please feel free to do so and drop down your answers in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you would pick for these prompts. So yeah, the first tag is friendship love. Name a book that includes a loving friendship. So for this, I'm going to choose a book that I recently read, which is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. So that is the first book in an adult fantasy series, and it follows our main character Locke Lamora, who is a criminal, and he was an orphan that was taken in by this man called the Thief Maker, who trained him up to be a pickpocket, and it turned out that he was a little bit too good at thieving, and he was very interested in the theatrical side of things. He liked to kind of perform and to play up and to do these elaborate schemes to try and steal from people in the streets of Camor. And because he was very good at what he does, he kind of started to create a little bit of a stir, and the Thief Maker thought that he was a little bit too much trouble to hold on to. So he decided to give him up and to take him to this character called Chains, who is a priest, or at least he presents himself as a priest within a temple, but we quickly find out along with Locke that Chains is actually a criminal himself, and he trains Locke up to become a member of the Gentlemen Bastards, which is this group of criminals who go about pretending to be like any other criminal in the streets of Camor, but it turns out that they are actually a little bit more highly trained, and they are pulling off these big swindles. So they are basically stealing from the merchants and the higher people in higher society, and for that reason they are kind of disrupting the balance a little bit within Camor, and it's very, very much a secretive position that they have. They are trained up in skills of theatrics, and you know, they perform as different characters. They can, you know, they have access to a lot of resources in order to pull off these really elaborate heists and these elaborate swindles, and it's just really fun following our main character as he does this. And of course he is a member of the Gentlemen Bastards, and so the reason why I've picked it for this prompt is because we follow him and all of the members of the Gentlemen Bastards, who all have this really strong friendship. There is definitely a found family element to the heart of this story that I just loved, and you can't help but fall in love with all of these characters and to want the best for them, even though they are criminals. And it's such a fun book, such a fun setting as well, because it takes place in a city that reminds me a little bit of Venice, because it is a watery city, so it's kind of broken up into different sections, and you can kind of traverse through the city on boats because there are these canals and this sort of network of water that you can sort of travel on to get through the city. So it's a really creative setting, and it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, that's my answer for the first prompt. The next prompt is sibling love. Name a book that features a strong sibling relationship. So for this one, I'm actually going to include a horror book, which is slightly strange to be including in a tag that's all about love. But this book has a really, really strong sibling relationship at the heart of it. And the book that I'm talking about is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This was one of my favourite horror books that I read last year, and I just think that the family element to it is so strong, and you can't help but feel for the family and everything that they are going through. So in this book we follow a family who are facing a lot of difficulties. So they are under financial pressure because the husband has lost his job, but also emotional pressure because one of their daughters in the family, the eldest daughter, is starting to show signs of acute schizophrenia. So she is acting very erratically and uncharacteristically. She's showing challenging behaviours, and so they seek medical help, of course, but nothing seems to really be helping her, and the family become more and more desperate, particularly because they don't have much finances, and so they end up reaching out to a Catholic priest who convinces them that their daughter is actually being possessed by a demon, and he thinks that the best way to help her is to perform an exorcism. And he also reaches out to this TV company who are sort of filming this show, this reality TV show called The Possession, and the family decide to become the stars of this TV show because it means that they will get paid essentially, and so they can do this exorcism for their daughter. And so we follow along with this family as they are going through a really traumatic time in their lives, and every moment is being filmed, which just adds to the pressure. And what's even worse is that we are being told it through the perspective of an 8-year-old girl, so the youngest daughter within this family, who of course is so young at the time that she doesn't really understand what's going on, and she has such a strong relationship with her elder sister, the sister who is showing signs of schizophrenia. And that's the reason why I've included it for this prompt, because it's so clear that she has such a strong bond with her sister, such a fierce love and respect for her sister, and she kind of doesn't really understand why the adults are acting so strangely around her, why they are showing fear towards her sister, because it's her big sister and she can never be scared of her big sister. And it's just such a sweet perspective to follow, and it just makes it even more hard-hitting when, you know, things of course go a little bit awry. So yeah, I really enjoyed this story. At the heart of it, it seems like quite a straightforward sort of possession type horror story, but it's told in a really unique way. It's retrospective, so it's actually the youngest daughter being interviewed when she's an adult, so she's reflecting on things that happened in her past, so you're definitely never sure whether her side of the story is accurate. You're always questioning whether she is recalling things correctly, whether she's actually just recalling episodes from the TV show rather than her own memories, because that of course is going to warp her memory of things. And you also get the perspective of a blogger who is actually analysing the TV show. So they are going episode by episode and they are breaking down each episode and talking about, you know, the creative choices that were made by the producers for this TV show and the reasons why they might have painted characters in certain lights and whether or not that might actually be true. So yeah, it's looking at things from a really interesting angle, and it's just so good. It's incredibly horrific what this family ends up going through, and you can't help but feel for them, especially for the youngest sibling and her relationship with her sister, which is just so precious but also really sad. Okay, so the next prompt is parental or guardian love. Name a book that has a character who identifies as a parent or a guardian. So for this one, I'm going to name the book that I am currently reading, which is Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. This is the third book in her Wayfarers series, which is an adult sci-fi series, and I just love all of Becky Chambers' work. She is a fantastic author, and she is particularly fantastic at writing characters, and it definitely shines through in this book. So in this book we are following lots of different characters, so it's multi-POV and it's set in a time where humanity has escaped from Earth because Earth was no longer habitable, and they took to the stars and they formed this fleet of spaceships, and that became their new home, and they travelled, you know, for many generations across space until they finally reached other intelligent life forms who helped them, provided them with more technology, and they ended up kind of settling in space, kind of orbiting this sun, but they have stayed as a fleet because that has become very much their home. Of course, some humans ended up leaving the fleet, some went and formed a colony on Mars, some have moved to other planets, but some people chose to remain within this fleet, and it's very much talking about the sense of community within this this culture, I guess. And it talks about the fleet itself, it talks about their belief system and how their view of themselves is very much changed by the fact that they are kind of no longer tied to a planet, and that they are, you know, living out in space. It's very much a culture of nothing goes to waste. You share everything because everything is so important, because they only have a finite number of resources. And it's just fascinating following different perspectives. Most of the perspectives are from people who live in this fleet, so they're mostly human perspectives. You've got a range of different ages. You've got a young teenager who's pushing boundaries, you've got an elderly woman who is having difficulty at work, and you of course have a parent, which is why I've included it in this prompt, because it follows a parent of 2 younger children. And what I love about this book is that although it is set in the far-flung future, in this fantasy alternate reality where humans live out in space, it also talks about very real and very relatable human issues. And I feel like that shines particularly strongly within the parent's perspective, because she is dealing with struggles that I feel like a lot of parents can relate to. She is dealing with the issue of balancing work and home life. She is talking about, you know, dealing with her daughter facing bullies at school, having a toddler that she's looking after, and they're just all very human and very relatable issues, and it just makes you really feel for the characters. And it's definitely a story that deals with some heavy themes. I would say the main theme in this book is grief, a lot of collective grief, kind of as a society, grieving, you know, the loss of someone, but also about grieving the loss of a culture, because, you know, the fleet has to change its perspective a little bit when they come into contact with other intelligent alien races, because their way of life is kind of challenged, because they need to kind of fit in with this wider group of people. You know, for a long time humans thought that they were the only intelligent life forms in the universe, and then suddenly they meet all of these other intelligent life forms, some who are much more advanced than they are, and that obviously has an impact on who humans, the way that humans think of themselves. So as well, there's a lot of discussion about grieving for a culture that you felt connected to, and seeing that shift and having to change and adapt. So yeah, it's just a really fascinating book. Nice short chapters as well, so it's really easy to get through, and it's just a kind of celebration of humanness, if that makes sense. The next prompt I have is Pet Love. Name a book that features a loyal pet or animal companion. So I struggled to think of a book for this prompt, because it turns out that I don't read that many books with pets in. Maybe this is something that I am doing wrong. If you have any recommendations for me for books that have cute pets or animal companions in, please let me know, because I would like to read about more animals. But the only one that I could really think of is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So that is a book that you've probably heard me going on about before, because it's one of my favourite books ever. It's the first book in an adult fantasy series. It's got a medieval setting, set in Russia, and it follows our main character Vasilisa, who has this unique ability of being able to see household spirits and to communicate with them. And she is very much an embodiment of the old ways, and things change when her father marries a new woman. He brings her home from Moscow, and this new wife of his is actually a devout Christian, and she is very fearful of the old ways. So there is definitely a clash between her and Vasilisa, and the new wife thinks that the household spirits that Vasilisa can communicate with are actually devils and demons, and she thinks that they need to be got rid of. So she brings a priest to town to try and clear the village and the town of all of these demons, and that has a huge impact on the environment. So things start to go wrong, crops start dying, and these dark creatures start creeping in from the forest, because it turns out that these household spirits were actually protecting the people rather than, you know, being something that should be feared. And so it's such a fascinating way of looking at that change in society when sort of pagan beliefs, or is it pagan? You know, those old ways of living and those old religious beliefs were changed and Christianity took over. And it's a really interesting way to look at that using the fantasy genre, and I just love it. It's very, very beautifully written, very whimsical, very cold, because a lot of the time it's set during winter, and of course in Russia they have very, very harsh winters, so it's perfect for a wintry book if you're looking for one. And I chose it for this prompt because Vasilisa actually forms a bond with this intelligent horse, and that's a very beautiful relationship, and is one of the only animal sort of companions that I can think of. So that is what I'm choosing for this prompt. The next one is, of course, romantic love. Name a book that contains a swoon-worthy romance. So I, of course, had to include some romance in this tag video, and I am not a huge romance reader. It's probably one of the genres that I read the least, but I did read a book that I loved last year, which was called Beach Read by Emily Henry. It's a very popular romance book, so I'm sure you've probably heard of it before, but I actually ended up really enjoying this one a lot more than I was expecting to. And it's basically about two authors who end up staying in these neighbouring beach houses, and they're two authors that write very different genres. So the female character January, she writes romance books, and the male character, I think he's called Augustus, is it? Yeah, Augustus. He writes literary fiction, and they're both in a little bit of a rut, and they need something to spark their creativity, and so they decide to set each other the challenge of writing each other's genre. So January has to have a go at writing literary fiction, and Augustus has to have a go at writing romance. And to inspire their creative ideas, they decide to go on these sort of excursions, I guess, and to do activities during the day to, you know, help them with their writing. So they end up doing some stereotypical romantic things. They go on some like fake dates, I guess, to try and inspire Augustus to write some romance. And they also do some interesting trips as well. They go and they interview some survivors of a cult, which is, you know, a topic that Augustus was interested in writing in for his literary fiction, and now January is going to be trying to write about. So it's really interesting, them both having a go at writing each other's genre, and of course they find some romance along the way. It's a romance book, and I just really love the chemistry between the two characters, and I liked the humour in this story, and I just thought it was such a fun time. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. The next prompt that I have is erotic love. Name a book that doesn't fade to black when things get spicy. So of course, sometimes you want something with some spice in it, and romance books don't have to include spice. They often do. At least adult ones often do. But yeah, I wanted to kind of distinguish the two in this prompt because, you know, I feel like a swoon-worthy romance doesn't necessarily have to include spice, and sometimes you want something that is very spicy. So yeah, I thought this was a fun prompt to have. I haven't read that many spicy books recently, but the one that is dominating my brain right now is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas, because of course that was released earlier this year and it's all everybody has been talking about. No, I haven't read it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to contain a lot of spice because it's a Sarah J Maas book and she writes spice really well, and all of her other books in this series have been incredibly spicy, so I'm looking forward to that. If you haven't heard of this series before, it's the Crescent City series. It's Sarah J Maas's first adult series, and it follows our main character, who is called Bryce Quinlan, and she is a half fae, half human woman, and she ends up getting tangled up in this murder case, in this murder mystery, because she has ties to one of the victims, and she ends up getting hired to investigate what's going on. And because she is going around and digging up dirt from the underbelly of the city, she needs protection, and so she is given this man called Hunt Athalar, who is her bodyguard, who protects her as she's going around and delving into all of these dirty secrets. And she ends up uncovering more than just what was going on with this murder. She ends up uncovering some secrets about the way the city is run, and it gets pretty intense pretty quickly. A lot happens in these books, so it's very hard to describe them in a concise way. But basically it's an epic fantasy. I would say the main focus though is very much on the romance, and the sexual tension between the two love interest characters in the first book is insane. I absolutely loved it and ate it up. The second book I lost a little bit of interest in, not gonna lie. The second book was a big disappointment for me, but it ended in a way that's kept my intrigue, and so I am interested to see where book 3 goes, and I'm really hoping that I enjoy it, because yeah, it kind of started here, took a massive nosedive with book 2, and I'm really hoping that it comes back up again for book 3, but we shall see. But yeah, Sarah J Maas writes over the top love scenes really well. So if that's something that you enjoy, then I would highly recommend checking out some of her books. Okay, prompt number 7 is self-love. Name a book that includes the theme of self-love. So for example, themes of accepting your own worth, finding yourself, self-acceptance, personal growth, those kinds of themes. So for this, I wanted to choose a book that hasn't been published yet, but has recently been announced, and it's a book called Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. So I have been following Lucy on YouTube for a while. She is a YouTuber. I'll link her channel down below, and she has a lot of really cozy content. She does a lot of lifestyle stuff, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of books, a little bit of everything really, a little bit of travel, and she seems like a really nice down-to-earth kind of person. And she recently uploaded a video announcing this book. So she has been accepted, she's been given a publishing deal, which is amazing, and this book just sounds so perfect for millennials. If you like cozy, witchy books, I think you're gonna love this one. I'm really sure that I'm gonna love it, and I'm excited about it, and it sounds perfect for this prompt. I am just gonna read you the synopsis, because I think that's probably the best way for me to talk about this book. So it says, Belladonna Blackthorn hasn't lost her magical spark, but she hasn't seen it in a while either. Balancing work at her beloved Luna Books with protecting it from her toxic boss, who's running it into the ground, and all the while concealing her witchcraft from the non-witches around her, Belle is burnt out. Perfecting the potential of her magic is the last thing on her mind. But when her 30th birthday brings a summons from her coven and a trial that tests her worthiness as a witch, Belle risks losing her magic forever. With the month of October to fix things and signs that dark forces may be working against her, Belle will need all the help she can get from the women in her life, from an unlikely mentor figure and even an infuriatingly handsome watchman who's sworn to protect her. With found family, slow burn romance, and an uplifting message about self-love, this is the cozy autumnal read that you've been waiting for. How great does that sound? And in the tagline it says, perfect reading for fans of hex appeal and a witch's guide to fake dating a demon. So I feel like those are two very popular books, and so I feel like this one is going to be very successful, and I just think it sounds great. I love that the main character is 30 or in her 30s, where it says that she's coming up to her 30th birthday. So I really love that, because I feel like a lot of these stories have younger characters, you know, characters maybe in their late teens, early 20s, who are kind of trying to figure out who they are. So it's really nice to find a story of someone who's a little bit older, you know, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure on people to get everything sorted by their 30s. So it's nice to read a book about someone who is still figuring things out when she is in her 30s. And I like the idea that we have this person who's been told that she has all this potential, so all of this magic. She's been told that she could do anything with her life. I feel like that's quite a relatable thing. And then she kind of gets to her 30s and is suddenly like, hey, what have I actually done with my life? What have I actually done with this magic that I have? I don't know, I just think that sounds like a really interesting concept. And it also sounds like so cozy and the perfect autumnal read because of course it's witchy. When Lucy was talking about it on her channel, she said that it has a lot of nostalgic vibes, so I think that it's going to be perfect for millennials and, you know, people who were born in the 90s, because I think it's got a lot of influence from things from that culture. So yeah, I'm super excited for this one, and it's always fun as well to support debut authors and everything. So I'll pop a link to the pre-order thing down below as well if you want to go and pre-order that book and help out Lucy on her journey as a new author. So yeah, super excited for that one. And then finally, the final tag is just share the love, and it says tag some booktubers that you love. So I am just going to tag a bunch of booktubers, a bunch of beautiful booktubers here, in case they want to give this tag video a go. Please don't feel pressured to do it if I have tagged you, only if you want to. And yeah, feel free to let me know your answers in the comment section down below as well. And yeah, that's it from me for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, don't forget to like it if you did like it, subscribe if you want to see some more from me, and I guess I'll see you next time with another video.